presentation, we are going to be chatting about how to enhance my Revit drawings and presentations. If at any point you are unable to hear me or you can't see my screen, please drop me a message in the chat panel and I will try and resolve it as soon as I can. Thank you for those who are raising their hand. That means you can hear me and you can see my screen. So good afternoon to those who's just joined. My name is Froza and I'm a BIM specialist at Baker Baines in Cape Town. I do use Revit quite often. I've been using it for about roughly, say, I can't even remember. That's how long. So I think we'll leave it at that. I've done quite a few of these webinars. If there's a specific topic that you'd like, please drop me an email. My details will be at the end of this webinar. Of course, today we're going to be focusing on how to enhance your drawings. So we've got quite a long agenda and I'm going to try and get through it, or I'm going to try and get through all of it. And we're specifically going to look at how to make your Revit drawings look pretty. You know, how to tell it to the client. And in terms of this, we will look at things like graphic display options, visual styles, how to lift the eye elevation, how to change the anti-aliasing, etc. And we're also going to look at things like overlaying the plans, how to mix your AutoCAD with your Revit, how to view placement. Now, I'm not going to open my Revit. It's going to be purely presentation format. If you would like to see these things in Revit, and drop me an email and we can try and arrange something. The 6, I see I'm actually missing a point. I see my point's been a bit wrong. So number 4 is presentation in terms of rendering techniques, and then we're going to look at using photographic underlays, and that's going to be the last that we'll look at. Right. So as with all my webinars, we always start off with who is Baker Baines. And Baker Baines is the fastest growing design and technology partner in South Africa. We are also the largest authorized gold partner, and we specialize in a number of things. These things include selling software, but also we we don't just want to sell you the software, we also want to help you adopt it. We also do CAD learning, civil site design, as well as Adobe. CAD Learning is our online portal if you would like to learn the software. It has all of the audio software, and you can basically learn on the go sitting at your PC, and you can watch videos on various software. Again, if you would like more information on any one of these things, you're most welcome to drop me an email or contact Baker Baines on the contact details that will be on the last page. Okay. At Baker Baines, we have certain beliefs. Those beliefs include in designing a better world. And basically, we've got that technological role to play in influencing the impact in design in today's changing world. We also believe in delivering a better project or product. And with that, we've got the proven ability that we actually engage in consulting with our clients to ensure that the delivery of any project, whether it's AEC or manufactured or in a manufacturing environment, is improved, or we can help them to improve. And then last one, and one of my favorites, is technology adoption. So we go out of our way to help clients adopt the software. And I know what it's like to buy software and you aren't able to use it. So that's why we focus on this, because we always want clients to be able to use software to the best of their ability so that they can obviously cut down on time, improve efficiency, etc. Right. So that's the whole background of the Baker Baines. Is, like I said, my name is Froza. I'm a BIM specialist. I've been using Revit for quite a number of years. I specialize in training and support. So if anybody needs assistance with training, please, you're welcome to contact me. And then, yeah, that's about it. So let's jump straight into graphic display options. So basically, now that you've completely modeled and scheduled everything, this is where the fun actually begins. Because now it's time to create those images and those sheets. And being able to present a 3D model in a 2D presentation is actually a form of art, and it's one of the true strengths of Revit. If a client or a reviewing agency or contractor doesn't understand the design of the drawing, then obviously clearly you've done something I don't want to say something wrong, but you kind of need to make a change so that they can get that feel of the drawing. So it doesn't really matter. So it doesn't actually matter how detailed the model is, because what you essentially want to do is you want to communicate it through your drawing. So you want to communicate your design through those drawings to your client or to the contractor. Now, the drawings should look great while it communicates its design, and how you control the drawings look or how they look is obviously what consultants within the AC environment do, right? So we are going to be chatting about how to edit your graphic display options. In terms of graphic display options, we're looking at visual styles. Now, Revit provides several of these types which help you to view and communicate your design. The basic visual styles, which is based on model surface patterns, include your shaded line, or your shaded, your hidden line, your realistic, and obviously your rendered. Now, deciding on which visual style usually depends on what you are trying to communicate. I know with us it was usually hidden, or when I work in engineering, it's usually fine detail with hidden or shaded. But for example, if you are just starting out in your design process and you want the most basic design, such as the massing or size of a proportion, then obviously your hidden light style is going to be your first choice. As the design becomes more refined, you are going to want to show that. And because of that, you might opt for a more shaded or realistic view. And then you can start suggesting or demonstrating your materials. And once this design has actually been finalized, that's when we move on to our rendered view. And that gives you a more realistic feeling presentation. Now, when we're talking about graphic display options, we're basically talking about hidden line views. And if you look at the first view that I have here, that's just your basic view, right? But if you want to make it look a bit more attractive, what you can do is you go into your properties, you select the material to duplicate and rename. Very important, please duplicate and rename, otherwise you're going to lose your initial material. To duplicate, rename, you save it to the new library. And then when you look at your display options, this is what you can have. The point I'm trying to make is with little changes, you can see how your drawing becomes, how you enhance your drawing. And obviously, if somebody looks at it, the blue stands out more than the gray. So that's an option that you can consider to use. The other option is realistic views using edges. And the way you would do that is you would go into your properties, your graphic display options, under surfaces, choose realistic and show edges. And you can see that this drawing actually shows the edges of the surface. So it's another one of those ways to make it look a bit more attractive. There's also something known in Revit such as ambient shadows. And this you can do with all non-rendered views. The way you would choose it is, again, you go into your properties, graphic display options, surfaces, and hidden lines. I'm not sure if this is big enough for you to see, but if it's not, you can actually download this presentation afterwards and you'll be able to actually see where to find it. Otherwise, again, as I mentioned, my details will be available on the last slide. Again, you can see the differences in these two images when you're using your ambient shadows or not. The other options, and quite a few of my clients have asked me about this, is anti-aliasing, and or rather we call it smooth angled lines. If you're looking at the top image, you can see they look a bit more sketchy, and to avoid that, or to avoid it and for a more smoother effect, you go into your graphic display options and you select the smoothing lines with anti-aliasing. Personally, we never used to go for the sketchy look. We always preferred the smoother look, but I do know that sometimes you want to have a drawing that appears a bit sketchy because it's something conceptual, and then that is fine. If you want to change it and you prefer more smoother look, that is how you would switch it off. Okay, so the other one, or the other option that we're going to look at, is a realistic view in terms of using sky and photo backgrounds. Now, Revit provides you the ability to adjust the sun settings. So I'm jumping the gun here a bit. So in terms of the sky and photo backgrounds, Revit gives you the option to insert different backgrounds into your drawing. And you can actually do this by going to your properties, your graphic display options, surfaces, and then choosing realistic background. And you can see here that I've chosen an image, and I've actually pasted the image at the back. So that can be done with any image that you decide you want to use. And the difference is, if you compare the two images, this one looks, the top one is more plain, whereas the one at the bottom has got that realistic cloud-like feel. So if I had a sun, I could have pasted the sun in the background and you would have seen the sun, so it would have looked like a sunny day, right? And obviously you can adjust the image to see how it fits, and you can adjust the position and play around with it, right? In terms of the graphic display options, you also have the shadow, light, and sun settings. Now, Revit provides the ability to adjust the sun settings in order not to just create a dynamic, accurate representation, but it also helps you to make your drawing more visually dynamic and interesting. And the way you adjust this is you can adjust the settings by date and time in order to provide a single setting, or you can produce a single multi-day solar study. And this is done when you are doing your sun settings, right? So there's where you'll select your single or your still or your multi-day option. And I feel that this is just another example of how Revit allows you the opportunity to experiment and play with your presentation in order to allow you to express yourself and let your design actually be shown as in a more interesting way. Obviously, it takes practice, so my advice is always to play around with it and see what actually works for you and what is possible. If you have any questions, you're most welcome to message me in the chat panel, right? Or you can actually just raise your hand and ask me or stop me. The next topic on our agenda is graphic presentation techniques. And here we are going to look at how to create interesting and dynamic views. So, once you start drawing and once you start creating your views, you obviously want to try and master Revit, but you also want to explore what's possible, because essentially you are going to do presentations as well. And if you're doing presentations, you want it to look something to this effect, something that is going to, something that's enhanced and that the client is going to like seeing, something that's going to catch their eye. So in terms of doing this, the one way of doing it is, if you're looking at my first image, so I'm going to scroll back. So if you're looking at this image, so one way to make images more interesting is actually to bring the viewer into the picture. So what I did here with this image, I literally zoomed in a bit, right? If you're looking at, so I've zoomed in to that corner over there, zoomed in, and by bringing the eye level down, which is over here in the properties, by bringing the eye level down to the human scale and viewing the design in this way, actually from a pedestrian's point of view, you actually invite your client in to see the design more in an interactive approach. So basically, you need to imagine that you are actually standing on the ground looking up at this drawing, and this is what it should look like, or this is what you would like it to look at. You can actually see the difference, and I think this one looks much better because the first one you're seeing it from a distance, but the next one you're actually more immersed into the drawing. Our next item on the agenda is overlay plans. Now, in terms of overlay plans, we all know that you can link and import an AutoCAD drawing. Now, what Revit does, it also allows you to place views on top of each other on a sheet. This technique actually works very well if you're trying to meet a deadline and you don't always have time to convert your consultant's drawing from AutoCAD to Revit. Obviously, the ideal way is to do it in Revit because you don't actually want to use AutoCAD in your drawing. But like I say, if it's a time issue, you are able to do it, or you can do it. Now, if you're looking at this example here, this landscape has actually, they've got prelim drawings, and it includes a schedule. Right? So what we did here is we've just placed the schedule onto this drawing and partially exploded it so that we took away all the unwanted items. Right? And then we've actually just copied a couple of trees, and this whole drawing actually took less than 30 minutes. Right? So again, rush for time, that option is there if you would like to use it. The next one that we're going to look at is changing the view cut planes. With this option, Revit allows you to duplicate any view and then modify each view as necessary. Now you can see that we are looking at a 3D view and we're looking at it in 2D. The nice thing about this, or why I like using it, is because if you place these plan views next to each other with different cut views, again, you're seeing what it looks like in 2D, but you don't have to imagine what it will look like in 3D because you can actually see it. So the client can, so this will essentially help with the client's visualization. So what I did here is I actually duplicated the view and modified the cut planes so that you can see where we are cutting and what we are looking at. Right? And again, people are visual, so sorry. So if I see the studio drawing, immediately my first thing is I'm going to be thinking, what does this look like in 3D? And by placing it next to each other, you're kind of cutting down and you are giving them that assistance to, you're assisting them to help with their visual skills. We're also looking at multiple overlay elevations, and this is one of the things that we used to always use. It's simply a way of making your drawing look, like I said, more attractive. And the way you would do that is you'd place an elevation either next to each other or you'd place it over a gradient background. And this, again, it's like a play, it's not a play on, it's not a visual play, it's more like instead of just giving them that 2D drawing, we're playing with colors, we're playing with materials, and it gives it that realistic feel. Now, if you're looking at those current drawings, you see that all 4 elevations is on the sheet. The first one, you can actually see that it's got a gradient background, and that was turned on in the graphic display options, right? The other one is where it's below each other, and what's activated there is the gradient sky view, and I adjusted the crop region to show a desired presentation effect. Now, this works quite well when you have presentations, and you can actually use these images and take it to your, if you don't want to show your Revit drawings, you can do this in a presentation, show to the client, and it's quite effective because it comes out of Revit, right? It's not that you have to take it to a different program and make it look like this. So again, it cuts back on time, and it means that you can just go with this model and add in a couple of gradient images, and then the way you place your elevations is how you are going to show it to the client. Right, if you're looking at this drawing, this is where we're using the transparency. And in this example, you'll see that there's different overlays, right? And transparency played a part in them. In this examples, what we were trying to do is actually explain how the new roof and facial elements were simply dropped into existing roofs that couldn't be cut or modified. So you can see it here, the transparency ones. This one was, or we always use this again with our presentation. So we used to go from these type of elevations into very transparency. And I like this because it helps you to see through the other elements of the structure. Right. Another option that you have is how you render people. Now, when you're doing a non-render realistic view, it's always desirable to have people in your drawing because it provides more context, provides scale, and usually we use those images, right? But in order for us to make it look nicer and think outside of the box like we do with the trees and things, what we do is there's actually a technique in Revit in your graphic controls for the simple yes or no option. There's also, you'll see here, and other, you can actually say, do you want to see your CAD? What kind of extrusion do you want to see? And also you have the option to adjust the visibility settings and also the mask tone and transparency. And again, the transparency gives that contrast to your drawing. So it's quite a cool option to use, and it gives you more feel when you are presenting or when you have to show this presentation to a client. Right. The next topic we're going to look at is rendering techniques. Okay, so in terms of rendering techniques, now once we all learn to model every detail and every item, you're going to be able to render. And there's a little bit of tricks here and there that you can use to render or make things, or using the render techniques to improve what your drawing looks like. Right? If we're looking at this current drawing, now I've typed out that it says the presentation accuracy versus an emotional field. As with all your camera or perspective views, choosing your view and setting up your image is key. Now, for those of you who do renders, you would know exactly what I'm talking about. But the way you define your materials and how you adjust your sun settings actually plays with the post-render exposure, right? And this is where the art of rendering actually starts. In this example that you are actually looking at, you'll see that I actually adjusted the sun setting so that the countertop is partially lit, right? And in order to create a more visual interest, and this was in order to create a more visual interest and show that it's actually got a curved form. So you can actually see that here. Further adjustments that I included in this render was that I also put materials on the floor, on the screen panels, on the glass panels, and also the wall finishes. And then I placed lighting on the planters to help illuminate the plants and the screen walls. The other addition that I made is that the exterior sky was actually modified so it doesn't distract you from the interior. So you can see when you look at this image, you don't even notice the outside because you're actually too focused on what the interior items look like. And once this rendering was actually done, a lot of time was spent adjusting the exposure settings or exposure settings in order to create a warm afternoon, late sunny. So this is like the late afternoon sunny effect. Now, by adjusting all these settings, these included a white point and saturation settings, and you can actually feel the final rendering as it's shown, right? Now, again, it takes some playing around with your render settings to get this kind of feel. If you would like assistance on rendering, you can contact us and we'll help you to play around with it or kind of show you best practices or tips that you can enhance your drawing. When you're looking at this particular image, so as I just mentioned, preparing an accurate rendering to convey to your client means choosing the view, setting up the image, and adjusting materials. Those things are extremely important. But there's also times when you want to capture more of an emotional feel to a drawing, right? Now, if you're looking at this drawing, image 1 shows the sun settings being adjusted to accurately show the building, whereas image 2 shows the sun setting adjusted in order to create a sunset effect. Now, option 2 is a bit more dramatic because you see you see the sunset, whereas option 1, you see the building, you see the trees, and those are the things that stand out. So the reason I mention these things is because, again, you can play around with and show the client what it would look like during the day and what something would look like at sunset. And these are the things that actually help you sell, because clients are starting to think about this and they want to know what the building is going to look like in those two during those two settings. These two images actually demonstrate how the sun, and now we're specifically talking about our rendering option. Now, these two images demonstrate how the sun's position can affect the materials, the glass transparency, how it reflects, as well again as the total feel of the image. And if you're looking at this example, the settings are identical. The only thing that I've changed here was the sun setting, and it was modified. The sun setting was the only thing that was modified to create these two different results. So you'll see here that the only thing that was changed was the sun settings, but you'll see the big difference that was caused, right? So when you are changing your sun settings, you can decide which one actually looks better, which one works for you. On the same topic, in terms of rendering techniques, we've got the general, time of day, and post rendering. And once you've taken this into account, you can model. Once you've taken it into account, you've done your design, you model everything, you can actually play around with your daytime, sunset, nighttime, put them together, put them on a sheet, and actually compare what it will look like. And in these examples, you can see that all the model objects and materials are set, and only only the rendering, sun, shadow, and lighting have actually been adjusted to create these three images, right? So you can see the difference, and it was extremely easy just to change those things to produce three different results. Some additional examples of how you can leverage those things, and this is another example where I also just adjusted the sun and the shadow and the lighting, right? And again, you can see the difference between how the building will look from the daytime, the sunset, and nighttime. Okay, so those are your rendering options. Again, I'm not going to, this is just a presentation on how to produce these images. So I'm not going to open my Revit, but if you would like to see how it's done in Revit, you're most welcome to drop me an email or send me a message on the chat panel and I'll show you how to do it, or we'll try and set up a demo at your company. We are nearing the end of our presentation, kind of. I've still got a couple of slides to go through, and the next item that we're going to look at on the agenda is photographic underlays. And this is simply using the out-of-the-box Revit. Now, along with your standard backgrounds in Revit views, photo images can be used in the background and renderings, right? And not only can you use any photo image, but you can actually adjust the size and the location with the rendering to take advantage of the photo. And you can see here by doing that, you go into your rendering dialog, you choose your background image, and you can adjust, you want to scale it, you want to stretch it, and those options will then determine what your render will look like at the end. So it's another cool type feature that Revit allows you to do. And like I mentioned with all the others, my advice is always to play around with it to see what works for you. And if you need any assistance, you're welcome to just give us a shout. A couple of more examples about using images. This is actually what it would look like. So this was before the image was inserted. And once the image was inserted, this was actually what it looked like. So you can see the clouds in the background. And it's a nice, again, it's a nice contrast, it's a nice background, gives you that realistic feel to rendering. Right. When we're talking about photographic underlays, since we are on that topic anyway, because here we use an image, but we can also use a customized approach. Photo images can be used as backgrounds in your render, but not just in the conventional manner, right? The rendering process doesn't change, but exporting the image does. So instead of exporting the normal JPEG, you can actually export the rendering as a PNG or .tif file. And this way the image is saved out of an alpha channel, meaning the sky is not there, but it allows you to then place any image beneath the rendering, and therefore you can see the photo underneath where you would have originally seen the sky. So once you've separated these images, simply overlay the two Revit drafting views and resize the image so that you can see it, right? An example of this is actually here. So what I said was place a background photo in the detail view, then import it into your alpha channel rendering. Drag your rendering over the photo. You basically have to adjust the size so that it's aligned or both views are aligned. And the final rendering means you're cropping your view as a JPEG image. I like this because it's like a cheating way of doing it. So here's my initial render. This is when I drag it over to an image, and this is the final view. Right, another example of how this was done. Here's my other example. Okay, so if you have another example of it. I use this one quite often because I like putting in my own images. On that same topic, in terms of rendering techniques and photographic underlays, if you are remodeling an existing building, right, and you maybe want to create a rendering that shows existing content because you want to show the construction's relationship to as-builts, to existing build, to as-builts and new, or as-builts and site, as-builts, site and new. So you can also do this in Revit. And the example of this process is exactly the same as inserting a sky image behind the alpha channeling rendering. What you would do is you take a photo of the real world background in the exact same location as you would have placed your camera to create the perspective view, and then underlay them, right? So you'll see the actual view of the photo, and this is obviously the final overlay with the background set to it. So it's set on top of each other. That's the last slide that we are going to look at. In terms of rendering, um, when I look at my agenda, we've covered graphic display options. I'm just going to shuffle through it in case you've missed one or there's something new that's just joined. So we looked at visual styles, hidden, shaded, realistic, rendered. We've also looked at changing your fill patterns just so that something stands out a bit more, and you can actually just change the color fill pattern, right? We've also looked at with or without edges so that you can get that thicker line standing out a bit, right? And then we've looked at ambient shadows. Ambient shadows would obviously be available under your properties, graphic display options, hidden lines, show ambient shadows. The next thing we looked at was the smooth angled lines for less sketchy effect. Actually, just a more smoother effect instead of sketchy. And then we looked at photographs, putting photos in the background, adding a sky with clouds to improve what your drawing looks like. And we also looked at how to use the shadow and the lighting and the sun settings to create different renderings or different views of your drawing. And in terms of graphic presentation techniques, we looked at how to create interesting and dynamic views. So instead of looking at this drawing as is, I pretend that I'm standing on the ground and I'm looking up into it, and I zoom into that portion and I change the eye elevation, right? Just makes me feel like I'm actually literally looking at the top of that building. And then we looked at overlay plans, and overlay plans looked at mixing AutoCAD with Revit, changing the view cut lines, having duplicate views next to each other and changing the cut planes. And then we looked at multiple overlays where the way you position your views, such as your elevation, makes it look better. And here we looked at actually placing a gradient background to impress the client or make it look more attractive. And then we also looked at view or very transparency to show differences in, well, for this drawing, difference in roofs, but essentially also to see through your building, right, different materials. Then we looked at rendering people, right? It's an on and off button in terms of what you want to see. Right, and obviously people give that real effect because it gives you scale assistance, so you can imagine what something will actually be scaled down if you see a person standing next to it. And then we look at different rendering techniques, how you want to compare accuracy with an emotional feel. So do I want something to look accurate, or do I want something to show the building? Do I want to emphasize the building, or do I want to create a sunset effect, like a more emotional effect? Do I want, and again, this can be done with minor settings such as changing the sun, right? And then we looked at things like the time of the day of post rendering, daytime, sunset, nighttime, and comparing those views. And then, of course, our out-of-the-box Revit underlays, you can either add an image and then render, and instead of seeing a plain blue background, it'll have a cloud effect in the background. And we then looked at a customized photographic approach where you actually put your own image, you actually merge your image and your draw and your render to create this kind of feel or this kind of image or view. And then the last thing we looked at is putting an actual site photo with your render so that you can merge the two. So using it as an overlay image. Right, and that's the end of our presentation. If you would like to get in touch with us, our contact details for social media as well as my email address is on the screen. Right, you're welcome to email me with questions or drop me an email of any new webinar, or if you have any specific topics of webinars that you'd like to see, you're welcome to email that through to me. My email is rosa@bakerbrains.com. I am going to be on for another 5 to 10 minutes in case there are any questions. So if you do have any questions, you're welcome to message me in the chat panel. Otherwise, thank you for joining, and we look forward to you having our next webinar.